hartlike goeiemôre, good morning.
Ai, hartlik, nee, want sy het verlede week verjaar en die hele naweek haar verjaarsdag gevier.
Ja, kyk hoe moeg is ek, Pieter.
Nee man, jy lyk sommer nog 'n naweek jonger. Ons weet sy het die naweek geniet, ons het die naweek geniet en ons hoop julle het 'n heerlike naweek gehad en dat julle gereed is om hierdie week saam met ons op die regte manier te begin.
'n propvol spyskaart wat wag. Vandag kyk ons saam met Lance Bloomeris van Uno Health na die uitdagings van die sogenaamde sandwich generation. Die verpleegster en driekamp atleet Zanmarie Swanepoel skakel by ons in om te gesels oor hoe sy haar skofte en oefening balanseer. Ons hoor van die inspirerende jong skrywer Naledi Sedzin wat in matriek reeds 2 boeke gepubliseer het en ons kry 'n voorsmaakie van nuwe musiek saam met Bartu.
Lekker.
Lekker. Weet jy wat is ook lekker? Bafana het onlangs geskiedenis gemaak om deur te dring na die top 32 van die wêreldbeker. Ek dink ons moet so trots wees op hulle. With the World Cup in full swing, fans around the world are once again facing one of the tournament's most underrated challenges. Surviving the late night and early morning kickoff times. For supporters in time zones where the matches fall in the middle of the night, like we had when they beat South Korea at 3 a.m. in the morning, football has become less about 90 minutes on the pitch and more about trying to function the next day on minimal sleep. As excitement builds around the FIFA World Cup, we have found some tips for staying awake and making it through the night fixtures without completely collapsing at work or at school the next day. So the key advice starts before the match even begins. Experts and experienced fans suggest prioritizing a few hours of sleep earlier in the evening, treating it like a strategic rest period before the main event. Preparing everything in advance is also essential, from setting up viewing spaces and chargers to sorting out snacks and drinks, so there are no last-minute distractions before kickoff. Caffeine is widely seen as a useful tool, but apparently timing, once again, is everything. Overdoing it too early can lead to a crash before the match ends, while using it strategically helps to maintain alertness through the early hours of the morning. During the game itself, simple habits can make a big difference. Light snacks are better than heavy meals, while short movement breaks during halftime help keep the energy levels up. Fans are also encouraged to avoid sitting completely still for long periods, as this often increases fatigue. But even after following all these tips, some say the best way to deal with FIFA fatigue is accepting a simple truth. Productivity the next day will not be normal. So planning lighter workloads, minimal meetings, imagine, or extra coffee at work, and knowing that global football often comes with global time zone consequences. This might be your best strategy. En ek dink na amper 18 maande van vroeg opstaan om op hierdie program te wees, is ons eintlik die kundiges op hierdie gebied in terme van vroeë oggende en om die beste dag te hê daarna.
Ons het baie geleer, ja.
Ja.
Jy weet, wat 18 maande terug was ons anders deur die dag, maar nou is dit nogal amazing hoe energieke ou deur die dag gegaan het.
Elsa, jy lyk asof jy nie met my saamstem nie. Dat die vroeë oggende ons kan 'n paar tips ook gee.
Luister, ek het geen wenke nie, want baie mense sê dat 'n mens dit of glo dat 'n mens dit gewoond raak. Ek stem nie saam nie. Ek dink jy aanvaar dit later, maar ek dink dit is so wisselvallig. En vir diegene van ons wat nog na die tyd ook iets anders doen, jy weet. So ek dink dit kom neer op routines of so, maar ek is, kyk hier, so onthou nou, ek is nog jonk.
Jy is
ek
nog
leer
jong.
graag by julle.
So ons sal vir jou tips gee, soos wat jy sê, dit kom op die punt van, ons gaan dit nie sê ons is lief daarvoor nie, maar ons is gewoond daaraan en ons aanvaar dit.
En ons is hier, chom.
En ons is hier, chom, soos elke oggend tussen 6 en 7.
Maar dames, jy weet, meeste ouers ken ook daardie oggende. Baie keer is dit nou maar die pa's of die ma's, dalk beide, maar jy weet daardie oggend wat jy sê, die wekker het nie afgegaan nie, is moeilikheid. Kinders moet by die skool wees. Jy het 3 minute of 5 minute om die kinders by skool te kry. Daai Mr. Bean oomblik.
Ja. Maar die kinders is altyd oor 'n naweek is hulle die vroegste wakker, maar as dit 'n skooldag is,
Nee, dan slaap hulle
dan
lekker.
slaap hulle.
Maar hoor gou hierdie interessante storie, nê? Nou dat die wekker nie afgegaan het nie en die dinge nie geloop het nie, het hulle nou gesê, alright. Jy's welkom om jou kinders skool toe te bring, maar asseblief nie in pantoffels en pyjamas soos wat die geval is nie. Dalk ruk jy net jou kamerjas reg and there we go. 'n Laerskool in Kaapstad het die tonge laat klap nadat hulle kennisgewing aan ouers en voogte gestuur het waarin hulle gevra word om net te sê asseblief nie pyjamas of slaapklere nie wanneer jy die kinders by skool aflaai of oplaai. Kan jy imagine oplaai en jy het nog jou pyjamas aan? Maar that's Cape Town, hè? Julle is lekker slou daar in Cape Town.
Pieter, die Kaapse mense gaan na vir jou
Ja,
kom.
ag mamma, ek like die Kaapse mense, kom, bring hom. Die skool het ook erken die oggende gejaagd kan wees terwyl ouers skarrel om die kinders betyds en gereed by die deur uit te kry. Hulle het gesinne egter daaraan herinner dat enigiemand wat die skoolterrein betree netjies en gepas aangetrek moet wees. Kennisgewing het ouers aangemoedig om eerder items soos jeans, broeke, rokke, rompe, hemde, T-hemde en netjiese skoene te dra. Klere wat as onvanpas beskou word, sluit pyjamas, kamerjasse, slaapmusse, onthullende uitrustings, klere met aanstootlike taal en slordige of stikkende kledingstukke. Hoewel baie mense die versoek eintlik grappig of amusant gevind het, het die skool verduidelik dat die doel is om professionele en eerbiedige omgewing te handhaaf waar die waardes weerspieël wat hulle aan die leerders wil oordra. Die boodskap het op 'n positiewe noot geëindig deur ouers te bedank vir hulle samewerking om 'n atmosfeer van respek vir leerders, personeel en besoekers te help skep. Die storie het ook 'n debat aanlyn ontketting. Sommige ondersteun die skool se standpunt oor die stel van standaarde, terwyl ander mense meen dat besige ouers nie beoordeel moet word oor hoe hulle tydens 'n vinnige skoolrit aantrek nie. Ek het ook gemengde gevoelens daaroor, maar ek verstaan party mense, jy weet, daar is meriete, dink ek, in wat die skool daaroor aangevoer het.
Ek dink so, but I think it's quite prescriptive what they say, you should wear this, you should wear that. When I'm able to take my kids to school, I'm often on my way to the gym, so I'll be in a hoodie and tights and gym gear. I don't know if that would fall in gepaste kledingstukke vir hulle, maar your school drop-off is part of your routine. And I mean, mense wat van die huis af werk, dalk gaan hulle net weer hulle pyjamas opeindig. So hulle sê, nee, ja, ek gaan maar in my pyjamas. If you don't get out of the car though, I don't think it's a bad idea.
Ek sê ook, as jy mos maar net daar sit.
As jy net gaan aflaai.
Vir my gaan dit oor die styl van die slaapklere. As dit netjies is, kyk, ek soek 'n verskoning om in my slaapklere te wees. So ek voel net as dit netjies 'n langbroek is en 'n langmou hempie.
Ja.
Ek het nie 'n probleem daarmee nie, maar dan weer ek is nie 'n ouer nie, behalwe vir my 2 katkinders. Maar ek dink ook, jy weet, partykeer voel dit vir my die wêreld raak 'n bietjie streng oor dinge wat nie so belangrik is nie.
Ja, en ek verstaan hulle wil 'n goeie voorbeeld skep vir die kinders en die omgewing van die skool, but you've also got to take into account what people's day looks like, and then also you got to take into account if you're going to come to school in your pajamas, maybe don't get out of the car.
Ja.
I don't know.
Bye-bye, mami.
Wel, jou gesondheid verdien kwaliteit wat jy kan vertrou. Met Gulf Drug Company kry jy bekostigbare noodsaaklike medisyne vir die hele gesin, van pynverligting tot vitamiene en meer. Gulf Drug Company fokus op hoë kwaliteit en internasionale standaarde sodat jy met gemoedsrus kan kies. Besoek gulfdrug.co.za vandag om meer van die wits te ontdek en neem beheer van jou gesondheid. Gulf Drug Company, kwaliteitsorg elke dag. Bly net waar jy is, ons is nou weer terug. Many middle-aged South Africans are finding themselves in an increasingly demanding position, supporting their children, caring for aging parents, managing careers and running households, all while trying to look after their own well-being. This group, known as the sandwich generation, is often the one holding everything together, yet many are quietly facing burnout, financial pressure and declining health. To unpack this issue, we are joined by Head of Uno Health, Lance Bloomeris. Lance, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Now, for those who may not be familiar with the term, who exactly makes up the sandwich generation?
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite complex because it all depends on, I suppose, your age and the relationship you have in your household. So generally what we're finding is middle income earners who are often cash constrained, but you're balancing between elderly parents and younger children, and the demands of both actual parties. So you're almost trying to work out the balance between what you need to do for self, what you need to do for your kids, and then what are you doing for those who live in your house, elderly parents or aged family members. And so it's a balance between how you handle that, I suppose, triangle and all the demands that do come on any normal day.
So why are we seeing more South Africans finding themselves in this position than ever before?
In our experience, and the reason why we as Unu Health have actually started doing a bit more work on this, is that we are seeing an uptake in financial stress, which I suppose is not unexpected in our current economy, conditions, petrol prices, increasing medical costs. But it's a medical cost side where we have started seeing more pressure on family units, and then especially financial strains, which causes emotional stress on the main breadwinners in the house. So what we are seeing is that often healthcare is delayed because you actually don't have the money immediately available to handle all the pressures in the house. And I suppose available cash flow often is moved more towards those other than yourself as the breadwinner. And that just puts pressure on all the parties in the household, because you need to look after self to be able to look after the others, but you actually will rather prioritize money on your children or on your elderly parents, because that's often what, as parents, everyone does. So that results in a bit of emotional stress that ends up in delayed healthcare. And as we've worked out, delayed healthcare can have some serious knock-ons, and those knock-ons are often way more expensive than if you could get help earlier on. So our experience of late, especially now that we're deep into flu season and winter, is that this is very evident in most households at the moment.
What are some of the biggest challenges people in this generation face on a daily basis?
Yeah, so we see it as a cash flow constraint. So where does that, especially mid-month, the month has often run out before, well, the cash has run out before the month has. And when you're in that situation and there is an unexpected financial need, so this becomes a challenge in most households. What we have seen over the years is more and more people moving away from traditional medical aids due to the expensive nature thereof. So yeah, people will still stay with hospital plans and gap covers, etc. But when it comes to day-to-day primary health care, that time in the morning when you wake up and go, actually, I don't feel that well, what do I do now? And that can happen anytime during the month. That isn't only after payday does that happen. So that, what do I do? Or I need to get a sick note for my child because they can't go to school today. Or actually my elderly parent is not feeling well but needs to see a doctor. How do you now balance the needs of all those parties? So yeah, as healthcare costs have increased, so as Unu Health, we've realized that actually you need alternates. And in a household environment, you need to be able to understand what you can do earlier on before actually things become way worse in terms of the condition that you might be suffering. Especially as the primary breadwinner in the house, we often are deferring that focus to others.
Now, you mentioned that many people are constantly managing everyone else's health while neglecting their own. Why does this happen so often?
Look, I think as a parent myself and in the situation of helping elderly and my own children, I suppose that's just often what we do. You don't intend to do it, but that is the result of actually constant decisions around everybody else rather than yourself. And often, we're busy, things are going on, there's activities and your demands are actually stretched. As a result of that, our experience is now showing that people aren't getting to the doctor as soon as they should. They aren't seeking help as soon as they should. And that just delays, I suppose, that first course of action. Because it's expensive, to be honest with you. So if everybody's sick, who gets treated first in a household? And we're seeing that with this current flu season, where many people are getting sick all at once. and it is lasting longer, often needing to go to the doctor more than once. So if that does happen, how do you balance cash flow needs and requirements? So it puts the pressure on that person who is more than likely the parent first, where delayed care is very evident.
Are there any practical strategies that people can use to better manage the demands of caring for multiple generations?
Yeah, look, it all depends on your own personal circumstances, what financial options you have available to you, what available tools you have, and how prepared you are. But often we can't be that prepared, and as I've said, it does become a cash constraint. So especially us at Unu Health, what we are trying to do is make healthcare more accessible and be able to access digital tools and digital offerings that are often a little cheaper, in our experience, up to 50% cheaper, and it gives you access immediately. So in other words, it's something you can deal with during the week or weekends and extended hours without the exorbitant costs of after-hours services. So it does mean that from our side, we are able to put tools in people's hands where you actually have choice, and more than likely two people can see a doctor for the same price as a traditional doctor previously. So we're trying to understand how, through early awareness and early involvement of a clinical practitioner, you can actually delay or defer the ongoing costs of healthcare. So our experience again says if you delay healthcare, often the symptoms get worse and the costs are bigger and it takes longer to get better. So if you can get help quicker and you are able to use tools around you that are cheaper than traditional practices normally might charge, is one way of actually starting to get ahead of the longer term consequences.
I would also like us to talk about technology. I mean, it's playing an increasingly important role in healthcare. So how can digital health platforms help simplify life for families juggling so many responsibilities?
Look, I can talk to our example very specifically. So our digital telehealth platform is available from home, no queues, no bookings required. And this is not dissimilar to many other ones out there. But in our experience, what we are seeing is that within minutes, you can actually understand the clinical pathway that is available to you. There's certain conditions that you just need to go to a doctor and see somebody in person, and a digital tool will not help you. So you have a cut on your arm and you need stitches, or there's something else that's happening that you need additional support. But mostly what we're seeing, especially in flu season, is very common symptoms, and more than 90% of the people are able to be helped directly. And from that side, it's significantly more convenient to be able to talk to a doctor through your mobile device and actually get a clinical pathway prescribed early on, rather than defer and when further complications arise. So our tools are available from your home. You do not need to actually get out of bed for this one.
Yes.
And you will be able to know what is the right way to go.
Well, Lance, thank you so much for joining us. It does sound very convenient. Intussen kan jy ingeskakel bly, net hierna gesels ons oor sport.
Hartlike goeiemôre, good morning aan jou. Nou ja, ons het almal soms so 'n klein verskoningkie om nie by 'n oefensessie uit te kom nie, maar verpleegster en driekamp atleet Jean-Marie Swanepoel het nooit verskonings nie. Ons gesels vanoggend met haar oor hoe sy alles doen daar uit Bloemfontein uit die Rosestad uit. Goeiemôre Jean-Marie, lekker om jou saam met ons te hê. 'n Voltydse verpleegster en iemand wat uiteindelik na die wêreldkampioenskappe toe gaan in die driekamp. Hoe balanseer jy dit alles uit?
Man, daai is 'n vraag wat ek elke oggend vir myself vra. En man, ek het staan so 3:25 op in die oggend en dan besluit ek, hier's 'n stemmetjie in my kop wat sê, hoor hierso, moet ek of moet ek nie en hoekom doen ek hierdie aan myself? Maar dan besluit ek luister nie na die stemmetjie nie. Ek luister na my innerlike dissipline en ek staan op en ek gaan doen die oefensessie. En om albei te balanseer is nogal 'n moeilike ding in 'n mens se lewe want verpleegkunde verg baie van 'n mens self en die sport verg ook baie van 'n mens self. So om die twee te balans is eintlik, ek sal sê, dit vat baie dissipline en deursettingsvermoë om die twee te kan balanseer. En om die twee te kan balanseer, moet 'n mens 'n balans in jou lewe hê. Jy moet 'n bietjie van die en 'n bietjie van die. So ja, dit vat maar dis maar 'n balans wat 'n mens in jou lewe moet hê om die twee albei te kan doen en goed te doen.
Dit klink vir my regtig of jy hier praat oor net een ding en dis eintlik dissipline, nie waar nie?
Ja. Definitief.
Waar kry mens daai innerlike dissipline van? Want sommige mense kan dit baie goed doen, soos jy, en ander laat hom so nou en dan glip en ander mense het hom glad nie. Wat is die verskil?
Weet jy, daai innerlike dissipline dink ek kom van kleins af. Kyk, hulle sê mos altyd jou ouers is die produk wat jy eendag raak as jy groot is. En ek dink my ma en my pa het my geleer met van, hoorie, as jy iets goeds doen, as jy iets doen, doen dit goed. Want my ma het my tot geleer, as jy vee, moet jy goed vee. Jy moet terugkyk en jy moet trots wees op wat jy gedoen het nou. So, ek dink as ek terugkyk na elke oefensessie, na my loopbaan, voel ek goed oor wat ek bereik en ek probeer dit so goed as moontlik te doen. Ek probeer niks half te doen nie, verstaan? So ek het ook daai in my van as ek iets doen, wil ek goed doen. Ek wil dit nie halfpad doen nie. So dit is ek sal sê dit is 'n goeie eienskap en dit kan 'n slegte eienskap raak want partykeer is 'n mens hard op jouself. En soos verpleging, ek sê altyd ek gebruik die voorbeeld van jy 2 koppies, né? So as jy 'n verpleegkundige is, moet jy baie simpatiek en empatiek wees. En dit verg baie uit jou koppie uit. So partykeer, hierdie koppietjie van jou raak half. Maar met die oefening, dan gooi ek bietjie weer van daai koppietjie terug in die ander koppietjie. En dan raak hy koppietjie vol en dan kan ek weer teruggee na my gemeenskap en na my pasiënt en na die liefde en al daai dinge. So om die twee te balanseer, dink ek die oefening maak daai koppietjie weer vol. Verstaan?
Dis 'n pragtige manier om daarna te kyk, ek moet sê. Jean-Marie, jy's nou genomineer vir die G-Sport Multisport erkenning, die toekenning wat miskien vir jou wag. En hoe dit jou denkwyse oor dit wat jy doen verander?
Sjoe, dit is die eerste keer wat ek oefen al 17 jaar. Ek moet sê ek kom 'n baie lang pad. Ek oefen 17 jaar en een persoon het my raak gesien en my genomineer en ek voel verskriklik geëerd en bevoorreg om hierdie nominasie met albei hande vas te gryp. Ek moet sê dis 'n geleentheid wat oor my pad gekom het wat ek nooit gedink het. Hierdie sal oor my pad kom nie. Ek moet sê ek voel regtig, ek voel gebless en geëer om so 'n nominasie oor my pad te kry. Ek meen 'n voltydse werk met die oefening en my oefening is nie net een dissipline nie, dit verg 3 dissiplines. Dit is hardloop, fietsry en swem. En in daai week moet jy tyd maak vir alles. So ek dink om alles in te pas en genomineer te wees en ja, ek gryp dit met al twee hande. Ek voel regtig geëerd en gebless en ek dink is genade van bo. En ek wil net sê om so 'n nominasie te kry ek beloof dit is vir my wat 'n amateur is, wat nie eens 'n professionele atleet is nie, dit is vir my regtig genade van bo.
Verduidelik net vir ons, hoe oefen jy? Heel duidelik, 3-kamp atlete het verskillende blokke, hoe passeer dit alles in mekaar?
Sjoe, my oefensessies begin al 04:30 in die oggend. Ek staan op, ek weet, luister, as ek 'n 7 tot 7 skof vir oggend het, het ek nie tyd om 'n ander oefensessie te doen nie. So ek probeer in die oggende my hardloop sessies te doen voor werk. So ek hardloop my 10 kilo voor werk. Ek klok 6:30 in by die werk. Ek gaan werk my 12 ure en môreoggend doen ek presies dieselfde. So op my afdae probeer ek 2-3 sessies inkry. So dan probeer ek 'n swemsessie inpas van 2 tot 2.5 kilos. Ek probeer my oggend hardloop inkry en ek probeer nog op my fiets, op die trainer, ook nog 'n uur of 'n uur en 'n half in te sit. So dit is 'n baie moeilike program om te volg en nog die verpleegkunde ook te hê, want jy moet albei regtig goed doen. Jy moet albei probeer goed doen. Jy kan nie net onthou my brood en botter is by die verpleging. Die sport is nie my brood en botter en die sport is maar net om my koppietjie vol te maak en vol te hou. Maar ja, dit is 2 verskriklike moeilike balans om te vind. En dan kry ek nou nog raas by my man ook wat ek moet recover. So ek moet recovery time ook hê. So ja, ek probeer op 'n weeklikse basis probeer ek my program so om my werk te shift.
Ons het amper nie meer tyd oor nie, maar kortliks, jy berei nou voor vir die wêreldkampioenskappe in November in Abu Dhabi. Hoe gaan dit daarmee?
Dit gaan baie goed. Ek berei eintlik nou eers voor vir my ESA's die 11de Julie en dan fokus ek op die wêreldkampioenskappe want 'n mens moet dit maar so in sarsies doen. 'n Mens kan nie op alles fokus op een slag nie. So ja, dit gaan eintlik baie goed. Ek moet sê, ek probeer regtig die werk insit. En met die spanmaats wat ek het, want ek het met die hardloop en die fietsry, het ek goeie ondersteuningssisteme. Ek ry met 'n ou oom fiets, oom Wally, so en hy daag met elke oefensessie op. En dan my spanmaats met die hardloop, hulle daag 3:30 in die oggende op. So ek is baie gebless as dit kom by mense wat my ondersteun. En dan sit my man en my ma hulle wat my ook baie ondersteun en my ondersteuningssisteem is net great.
Jean-Marie, baie dankie vir jou tyd, waardeer dit werklik waar. Ek dink ek praat namens almal as ek sê ons is baie trots op jou. Nou ja, ons gesels net hierna met 'n merkwaardige matriekleerder. Bly ingeskakel. Wat het jy gedoen toe jy in matriek was? Kyk wat sy doen.
You're watching Goeiemorgen, Good Morning. Most people spend their matric year worrying about exams, applications, and what comes next. But our next guest did something remarkable. While still in high school, she wrote and self-published 2 books, Children's Story, Jacaranda Tree, and a poetry collection titled Locked in a Suitcase. Young South African author Naledi Zetsin joins us today. Naledi, welcome to Goeiemorgen, Good Morning. It's such a privilege for us to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
What made you decide while you were still in high school to write and then self-publish your work?
Well, I've always loved storytelling and literature, and I've felt and loved that storytelling allows us to express ourselves, talk about our history, talk about our culture, and share messages and lessons. So for me, writing was a way of me dealing with my own personal emotions and overcoming hardships. So instead of letting negativity define me, I redirected it into something positive through writing. So after writing for a few years, I decided I wanted to publish 2 books, a children's book and a poetry collection, because I want the messages behind these 2 books were really important to me. And I didn't want my age to limit me from pursuing my dreams.
You also have said before that you didn't want to wait for everything to be perfect before you put it out into the world. Why was it so important to have that come out as exactly how you are and as exactly how you wanted to put it out into the world?
Yes. For me, sometimes I feel that perfection can limit us because we're constantly waiting for the perfect time, but that perfect time may never come. Life can be unpredictable, but instead I strongly encourage my peers to also pursue your goals. Never let age limit you, because the only way you can grow is through taking action. Although it's scary, but the skills I learned through this process of self-publishing are skills I would have never never learned if I never embarked on this journey. So that's why I strongly encourage others just to take the leap forward. It's scary, but once you do it, you realize it wasn't that scary.
You know, and that's so important, especially for young people, because now in the age that we live in, everything looks perfect from the outside in, especially if you look at social media. No one makes a mistake. No one ever has a pimple. No one ever. There's so much fakeness that you've got to contend with. So I think as a young person, I don't think you realize how important it is to just have that sense of self-acceptance. It doesn't come every day, but just to go, you know what, this is not perfect, but I'm going to put it out into the world, and then I've kind of done my job, right?
Yes, I think that's very important. And my parents have always told me that it's best to be authentic and to be your honest self, because through that you can grow and blossom into the beautiful flower you're meant to be.
I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I am looking at you now, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm actually getting quite emotional. And I'm just thinking, your parents must be so, so proud of you.
Yes, definitely. I would say my parents are proud of me and my family, because they've seen how even during challenging moments, I didn't let them stop me. I didn't let them define me. I wanted to overcome them, and I used writing, and my parents were very proud of me for expressing myself through literature, because sometimes it's easy just to sulk and feel lonely. But instead, I felt that writing my emotions down was easier than articulating them and speaking them out loud in casual conversations. So I would do a lot of self-reflection and then use poetry to express my emotions through that writing. So that has helped me a lot of the time. Anytime I felt overwhelmed, or I was struggling, or I was experiencing any personal issues of depression and anxiety, writing was a space where I could be raw and authentic without having to sound perfect, as you said.
Exactly. And what a constructive way to do it. I want to talk a bit about the books as well. So you said that the subject matter is stuff that you wanted to get out there and that you wanted to deal with. Let's take us through Locked in a Suitcase and then through Jacaranda Tree as well.
Yes, so Locked in a Suitcase is my debut chapbook and poetry collection. The poetry book is about perspective, biases, assumptions, and interpretations we all develop through our life experiences, and how it's very easy to be narrow-minded and view the world through one lens. But I strongly encourage the reader to step out of your shell and instead view the world from a different perspective, to become a more compassionate and open-minded person.
And then Jacaranda Tree?
Yes, Jacaranda Tree was my first book I published, and it's my debut children's book. This book is about civic duty, community care, and environmentalism and sustainability. And it encourages young readers, little kids, that caring about the environment is not an issue only for adults. It's also something that you should be involved in, because we live in the future, we experience it. And children, we can be incredibly powerful and influential in our communities by taking the initiative to care about our spaces and being citizens that engage in our environments. Yeah.
Why do you care so much? Why do you care about kind of self-care and being able to express yourself and using your platform to get your thoughts out onto paper, right? Why do you care about the environment? If I was your age, I think most kids your age, you know, it's about the weekend and it's about, let's go here, let's go there. Why is there this kind of sense of sharing and civic duty in you? Because we don't. I mean, why should we?
I've always loved history and learning about what makes all of us human and how we're all unique. And caring about the environment is an issue that affects all of us, no matter your age, your culture, your background. All of us are going to be affected by it and are being affected by it. So I wanted to write a children's story that teaches a young kid that you can be responsible and care about your environment, and you should not limit yourself because you think you're too young. And I wanted to also encourage children that you can be environmentally friendly and eco-conscious in a sustainable way, because sometimes I feel that we can be a bit performative in our sustainable methods, such as we decide to clean a park today, we take photos, we post it on social media, but no one maintains that park. No one consistently continues those actions. So instead, I rather recommend that you do smaller things, but you know you can
do them consistently. But I mean, that applies to so much in life that
Yeah.
you don't want to do this huge thing and then it's a goal you can't reach and then you just give up because you can't reach it. I've seen that you also with Faiza Montrose.
Yes. So
You did
with
the illustrations. Is
Yes.
this as well?
Yeah, I also did the illustrations. I made the rough drafts, and then I worked with her as a designer, which she helped me bring them more to life, and we enhanced them. Yes, it was definitely a big project doing both these books, and I did not do it overnight.
Yeah.
I created a 3-year plan and a 3-year implementation plan. So my books were published in matric, but I'd been doing this throughout high school.
You've got more of a head on your shoulders than I could ever have, and I turned 44 last week. So, wow, my mind is blown. Please, can we hear you read one of your poems?
Yes, I'd love to. The poem I'd like to read is Talk, and I chose this poem because it's a poem that directly correlates to the message and theme behind my poetry book. Talk. In the four corners that make a room, chatting to myself with low volume. The dialogue stirs in the air, my unfiltered thoughts are spoken rare. Wherever this conversation leads will give me the solution I need. The solitary space directs a play in a curious place. Lost in a forest I do not understand, through my voice I'm a guiding hand. Developing a story unsung, the symphony of the sound produces notes for a song. Opening grand doors for exploration on topics I never gave attention. Sharing doubts and dreams unfold, imagination is bold.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have been over 20-year career, one of the most impressive people I've ever met. Now, Lady Zetsin, our guest on Goeiemorgen, Good Morning, I'm blown away. Go and get her poetry. She's incredible. Stay just where you are. Music up next.
Nou, het julle dit, die splinter nuwe video vir nuwe spore. Hoe's daai? Die enkelsnit natuurlik vanaf sy Extended Play soos ons dit ken, die EP. En hy is hierso. Baie welkom Bartu.
Baie dankie. Is altyd so lekker om hier so by julle te kuier.
Lekker man. Ek moet vir jou sê net soos wat laat in die aande op die stage, lyk jy ook vars vroeg in die oggende.
Ag, dankie. Ek laat as jy so vir my.
Jy het dit al geleer. Is die nuwe spore, is die nuwe spore soos 'n nuwe blaadjie.
Dis 'n nuwe blaadjie wat ek oorgeslaan het, verseker, ja. En dan daai make-up wat ons agter.
Hoor nou. Sê gou vir my, die liedjie is uiteindelik uit, baie geluk.
Baie dankie.
En ja, wat 'n lekker sang man. Hoe kom dit hy met jou geresoneer?
Yes man, so daar's 'n heeltemal 'n nuwe paadjie wat ek in my lewe betree die afgelope rukkie. En ek het toe maar net teruggedink, soos ek nou vroeër van kamera vir jou gesê het, ek het aanvanklik eers kaalvoet geshow en hierdie nuwe spore, die hele konsep daarvan is my so ongelooflik mooi want ek het besluit daar's 'n tyd en 'n plek in my musiekloopbaan waar ek gaan moet begin staan vir iets en 'n werklike boodskap begin oordra. En met spore is dit net, yes, dis net different. As mens baie luister daarna, dis basies maar die geestespad van 'n man. 'n Man moet stap met homself en besef jy is nooit verlore nie, jy trap net nuwe spore. En ek meen daar waar jy net een voetspoor sien in die grond, is dit nie joune nie, maar jy is opgetel en jy weet waar om te kyk as jy krag nodig het. So op die einde van die dag, spore is net dis net amazing en nou aanloop, nooit terugkyk nie, as jy terugkyk, doen dit net om jouself te korrigeer. Nie om terug te val in die verlede nie.
Wat 'n ou al ervaar, die seëninge wat 'n ou nog gaan ervaar, kan uitdeel, kan share. Dit dra alles by tot nuwe spore. Wat die res van die EP aanbetref, was dit maar soortgelyke goedjies in Bartu se styl.
So daar is weer 'n party nommertjie. Daar is verseker dan moet mos van wees.
Ja.
Maar hy is nog op baie cool. Die song sal hom sing daai liedjie. Dis soos 'n modern day piano man. Basies waar ek net verduidelik wat gebeur by shows en hoe dit van my perspektief af klink. Soos daar's 'n gedeelte in die song waar ek sê, hier kom ou wat se naam en vra weer hoe dit gaan. Hy wil mos alles van die familie af weet. Ek seker van jy sal verstaan. Jy ken daai gesig van die ou wat jou kom groet, maar jy kan nie jou vinger plaas en sê vir jou, ek het 4 jaar terug so met jou foto geneem. Onthou jy my nie? As ek sê, nee.
Onthou jy daardie ete? Man, ons het saam gebraai. Dit is dat die ou dalk net hallo gesê rondom.
Ja, 100%. Ons is Rubas gewees.
Ja.
So, dit is baie cool. Dit gaan oor soundchecks en hoe die sets verloop uit my perspektief uit, maar 'n baie lekker kuier vibe. En dan is daar 'n bitter spesiale enetjie. Dank die Here vir jou. Wat ongelooflike mooi song is, daar's baie groot dinge wat gaan gebeur. Ek is snot, kop, oortoon verlief op hierdie
Daar
oomblik.
sy lekker.
Ek is 'n baie groot voorreg om die song saam met Bernice West te doen. En is nog 'n collab wat ek al vir baie lank, van 2 jaar terug se krone af wou ek al saam met Bernice gekollab het, ons toe vind ek jou gedoen het. So, nee, ek is baie opgewonde. Dankie Here vir jou, is ook 'n magic song, vol siel en vol energie.
En wanneer gaan hierdie EP nou in sy volle glorie beskikbaar wees, of is hy al?
Hy is nou
jy
beskikbaar, maar ons fokus hulle so, enetjie vir enetjie.
Enetjie vir enetjie.
Hou
Ons
net
by
die
die nuwe
socials
spore
dop.
begin.
Sal sien.
Nuwe spore begin. Baie dankie. Ek meen jy het ook al saam met lekker name gewerk, Stefan van Huisteen, Muse Studios en hoe geniet jy daai kreatiewe proses saam met daai ouens, want net so kreatief en net so amazing, né?
Yes, ek sal net sê net so kreatief nie, ek meen, hulle is ongelooflik, hulle skiet die dak uit in enige kamer waarin hulle loop. Ek meen, net om die kamer te betree saam met Stefan van Huisteen nou spesifiek. Hy is magic. Ek meen, hy het Spore se musiekvideo geskiet alleen. Hy het meeste van die writing gedoen van Spore, van Dankie Here vir jou, van Sink in die Hemel en van die voriges ook.
Beautiful.
Dit is ongelooflik. Daai ou, en hy is 'n ongelooflike drummer, sanger, instrumentalist. Hy is net magic. Die ou is net wat wonders. Dis so groot voorreg om saam met hom te werk, man. En om in jou span te hê, is definitief wat jy wil hê.
Jy raak ook nou een van die gevestigde name in die musiekbedryf. En hoe lekker is dit vir jou as jy terugkyk op waar toe begin het, hoe jy begin het en hoe jy ook gevorm het as mens, nie net as kunstenaar nie, né?
Laat ek vir jou sê, dit is 'n ongelooflike journey geweest, man. Dit is eintlik verskriklik en Spore laat my baie terugdink aan die Kaalvoet, as ek dit so kan stel. Ek weet waar my eerste vertoning daar by Amfiart was in Hartenbos, waar ek nie geweet het ek het 'n band nodig nie. Toe daag ek op met my kickpedal. So ek het soos, o Jessie, hier's Jeremy Loops en Spoegwolf en al hierdie manne met die groot bands en hierdie groot gees en ek sê soos, okay, ek gaan dalk ietsie moet doen nie. So mense leer baie vinnig, ek was baie vinnig in die diepe waters gegooi daar. Maar dit is 'n ongelooflike journey hoe mens verander as mens, die dinge wat jy leer oor die lewe, oor mense, hoe om na die lewe te kyk en net basically te besef niks is regtig so ernstig nie.
Luister en op daardie hoë noot ook baie geluk met die dubbel platinum status wat daar 2 oog bereik het, né?
Baie dankie.
Hoe verras was jy nie met daai nie?
Nee, van my voet afgeslaan hoor. Ek dink julle het seker die video gesien. Ek was van my voet afgeslaan. Nee, dankie.
Baie geluk en ek weet sommer nuwe spore mag dalk ook net een van die dae jou heeltemal oorblyf. Bartu, altyd lekker. Laat loop met hom 'n ou vriendjie en sterkte met alles vorentoe. Dis dan al van ons kant af. Ons sien julle weer en ek hoop jy het 'n heerlike dag. Van my en die res van die span hier by. Goeiemôre, good morning. Mooi bly mooi en sorg dat jy nooit ophou droom nie. Lekker dag.